Before we begin, I want to be clear. This video is only meant for those of you who actually want to get rich. For the purposes of this video, we'll define that number as more than $10 million. I'm not interested in arguing with you over 401k matches, 50k raises, and 300k max salaries. I'm making this for people who want a realistic way to make money in 2025 and beyond. If that's not you, probably best to stop watching now, as a lot of the career paths I'll be outlining here are off the beaten path and entail taking significant amounts of risk. But before we get into the careers, I want to talk about why I use the word careers and not jobs. Because to me, careers are jobs that lead to running your own business. Those are the only opportunities you should be looking at. I think jobs and employees are cooked in the next 10 to 20 years. And I mean completely fried. It's hard for me to even convey how bearish I am on W-2 white-collar jobs in the near future. I think it's going to get extremely ugly for everyone who isn't a business owner. First, we're going to walk through why getting rich as an employee is done, and then we're going to get into the solutions. The next 20 years will be one of the easiest times in history to get rich if you know what to do. You used to have a path to making a ton of money as an employee. That's no longer the case. So what happened and what is going to happen to make getting rich as an employee extremely unlikely? There are 6 main things. 1, financialization of the world. 2, lower friction to hire new employees. 3, AI. 4, globalization of the labor pool, offshoring. 5, immigration. 6, pace of change. Let's go through all of these one by one. Financialization of the world. Essentially, private equity company, in quotes, oversight. As the world has gotten more and more financialized, there's more oversight over each business from sophisticated source of capital. Anytime you start making too much money, you stand out in the P&L, right, the profit and loss statement, and become an item to get rid of. This always used to happen to some extent, but there used to be far more businesses that were run by families or individual owners who just weren't that sharky. That's changing fast. More and more private businesses are owned by private equity firms, family offices, and more sophisticated source of capital. These firms run a tight ship and watch their profit and loss statement like a hawk. Even non-private equity owned businesses have had to step it up due to increased competition. As a basic example, think about something as simple as a restaurant. How many restaurants were concerned about upsells, marketing spend, and customer LTV 30 years ago? 0, literally 0. Now you need to think about those things just to survive. Businesses have simply become more sophisticated, and the more sophisticated they get, the more competition increases, the harder it is to run, the more you have to think about cutting costs. The other thing is the focus on sale value. Private equity firms eventually want to sell the businesses that they buy. So while a long-term family owner may not care about paying you an extra 50K a year, which is really peanuts in the grand scheme if they run a good business, private equity firms do care because it really impacts the sale value of the business. If you have a business that trades at a 15x multiple, the private equity firm is going to fight tooth and nail to not pay you that extra 50K because it's worth 750K to them at sale. Now multiply that across every job in the company. Keeping employee pay low makes them tens of millions of dollars. It's simply way harder to justify keeping an expensive employee on the payroll if you know it's impacting the sale value of your business. I know none of this is necessarily new, but it's accelerating, and when combined with the other factors below, it's going to make it very difficult to make decent money as an employee. 2, lower friction to hire new employees. Hiring used to be a hassle. It used to be way harder in the pre-digital age. If you lost a key employee, that used to mean something. You used to have to call for resumes, cover letters, run a full in-person interview process, and even then, you weren't sure if you had access to full relevant talent pool. Not anymore. Now you can put up a posting on Indeed or LinkedIn and have 1,000 qualified candidates in hours. Then you have software or AI comb through the candidates and weed out the bad ones, identify the good ones, and you have video calls with them. You can have a great candidate hired in a week. So what does this mean? It means employees are way more replaceable than they used to be. This is obviously a bad thing for employees, as it means it's easier for you to get fired and easier to justify paying you less. Great for employers, bad for employees. You're getting squeezed. 3, AI. I don't think anyone realizes yet how much of an impact artificial intelligence is going to have. As is true with most technologies, advancements in AI will not happen in a linear fashion. It'll be gradual and then all at once, a hockey stick growth pattern and trajectory. We heard about AI in the early 2000s and no one was really too focused on it. Then out of nowhere, ChatGPT kind of took the world by storm and right now has a tested IQ of over 100, roughly the US average, can generate answers to complex problems and pictures on demand for pennies on the dollar. Within the next few years, the IQ of ChatGPT and other LLMs will allegedly rise over 200, right, which is higher than any living human. What does this mean? It means that AI is coming for white-collar professions who have coasted for many, many years. If you're a mediocre white-collar employee, this is incredibly bad news for you. For example, for a profession like lawyers, it could cut billable hours drastically. I've already heard of law firms that used to hire 20 associates now hiring around 5 per class. The rest of the work is being done by AI. Firms will get leaner, employees will be fired, and will be forced to find other jobs. A huge number of jobs will be completely automated, and wealth will accrue to those who can effectively leverage AI to make their firms as lean and as effective as possible. Another example is my friend who works at a tech company where they've fired all their SDRs, so low-level sales reps, and replaced them with AI outreach. This will become more and more common. 4, globalization of the labor pool, just offshoring. Pre-internet, there were segregated pools of labor. First, you used to only compete against your town, then maybe your county, then your city, then your country. Now it's the world. The pool of labor you compete against used to be smaller. Now it's quite simply massive. Remote work really exacerbated this dynamic as well. What are the implications of this? It's a simple supply-demand equation. Larger pool of labor, same pool of jobs. Not good for the people on the labor side of that equation. I know what you're thinking, right? Technically, the number of jobs should have increased as well, but keep in mind, we're looking at this from a strictly US-centric point of view. People in the US don't take jobs in India because they pay so much less. People in India, however, do take jobs in the US because they pay more. So the flow of labor is completely one-sided, meaning that the number of jobs in the US has remained relatively static, but the number of available workers for those jobs has increased dramatically. That means that the value of labor in the US has been dropping steadily and will continue to drop steadily until something changes. This has only been exacerbated by the rise in companies offering virtual assistants or VAs. I've used them myself, and they're insanely competent. You can hire a doctor, lawyer, college-educated type, whatever you want to call it, very qualified, very competent, from a foreign country for roughly $25K a year, in many cases even cheaper. I've seen people do it for roughly $1K a month. You don't have to pay benefits either, which is a big deal when you're comparing costs to US-based workers. If a foreign lawyer-level employee can be hired for $25K a year, what do you think is going to happen to the wages of US workers who demand $100K plus for the same work? It's pretty simple. Their wages are going down. Those $100K salaries will become $75K salaries. In many cases, the jobs will just be outsourced entirely. This will add even more supply, right? Because that person who just lost a job has to find a new one to the US labor pool and will further decrease wages. It will be an ugly doom loop that I think could probably really only be avoided by legislation. But as an individual worker, you're getting shafted. So the real question is, how can you, as a worker in the US, combat against the sinking tide, right? Essentially the inevitable devaluing of your labor due to supply side shocks? We'll get into that later, but the solution is very simple. 5, immigration. It's pretty clear that high-skilled legal immigration is going to pick up in the United States. With our declining birth rates and fiscal issues, it's tough to see a world where this doesn't happen. Regardless of whether you think this is good or bad, or I'm not making a judgment here, it's just extremely likely to happen. This is going to have a similar effect to the offshoring discussed above. More people for the same number of jobs. Great for employers, horrible for employees. Not hard to figure out which side of the fence you want to be on here. The one good thing about immigration is that it does expand the pie long-term, right? New jobs will be created, new businesses will be created just by virtue of how the economy works. But short-term, a lot of pain for mediocre white-collar workers in the US are almost certainly going to be more expensive and who honestly don't work as hard as the new immigrant competition. 6, pace of change. The pace of change of the world has quite simply never been faster. 1 year of current internet time is equal to 5+ years of pre-internet time. This means that old timers get left in the dust very quickly regarding new technology. It also means that you cannot afford to be offline. You simply can't. Online is the future and you need to build a presence there. I don't care what profession you're in. It's not an option. It's really non-negotiable. This impacts employees heavily as jobs will become irrelevant at a far quicker pace. Right? Employees will have to adapt and adapt and adapt. It's unlikely that they'll be able to stay in a career for 40 years, as was once possible. Basically, employees will have to kind of reinvent themselves. In all fairness on this one, there will be a decent number of businesses that aren't able to adapt and will be left by the wayside as well. But all things equal, when the pace of change increases, I'd rather be a business owner than an employee. So let's kind of summarize this section here. You have the world getting more and more financialized with sophisticated owners owning a higher and higher percentage of the businesses in this country. You have extremely low friction for hiring new, highly skilled employees. You have AI coming in, which is going to drastically reduce the level of menial white-collar jobs. You have the globalization of the talent pool, which makes it incredibly easy to find a harder working. I'm sure a lot of Americans will get offended by this, but I've hired both, and it's clear to me foreign workers are simply harder workers in general, on average, an employee at roughly 1/4 the cost of an American employee. You have most likely expanded high-skill immigration, which is going to further increase the supply side of the labor equation and bring wages down. And you have a rapid pace of change that's likely to make long-term tenure as an employee very difficult. So employees are just going to be squeezed from all angles the next 20 years. To make it more concrete and not just say employees are cooked, here's basically what I think is going to happen. Employee salaries will be flat and probably even start decreasing. The top end of the market will get a lot smaller. It'll be incredibly difficult, even as an employee, really good employee, to find a job that pays you over $300K a year. Right now, the only few that really exist are a select few tech companies, Wall Street, and sales. I expect all those, except for direct sales roles, to begin dropping in number as all the above plays out. Right? I think 300K plus roles will exist, but will be reserved for absolute killers. Everyone else is going to get compressed in that kind of 100K to 200K type range, even as they get older into their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Companies will get leaner and leaner as technology, AI, and offshoring make large numbers of employees redundant. Basically, this means a lot of people will be fired. Finally, I think asset values will continue to go up as financialization increases. More overall investors trying to buy businesses means asset values will increase, right? Simple. It makes it even worse for employees because while their pay decreases, the assets they want to buy become relatively more expensive. The difference between the haves and the have-nots will get wider. And you're really starting to see all this on the entry-level job data with the tech job data and with the Wall Street job data, right? All these salaries are going down, all the jobs are going down, there's high unemployment rates. It's going to get bad. On the other hand, as a business owner, you have more employees to choose from at a lower cost who you can replace easily with better technology to run your business and more people than ever want to buy it when you sell. It's pretty obvious which side of the fence you want to be on here. All right, so now that we've gone through enough of the negatives of the future, let's look at the positives. If you focus on the right paths, it's going to be relatively easy to get rich. In this section, we're going to go over the basics of how to get rich in the future and then go into the specific paths I would recommend. In the future, there's only going to be a few ways to get rich. It's going to be starting a business, buying and selling businesses, just investing, generating a lot of revenue for a business, essentially sales, and getting lucky. We're going to ignore the getting lucky part for obvious reasons and focus on the thing the rest of us have in common, which is owning a business or generating revenue for a business. And what's the hardest part of owning a business? Growing it. Contrary to popular belief, maintaining a business isn't really that difficult, but growing it is. And growing a business means one thing: revenue. At its core, what is a business? At a base level, it's the art of sourcing leads and servicing leads. People make it a lot more complicated than that, but in reality, that's all you're doing. That's why the single most important question you have to ask yourself when you're starting a business is, how am I going to be sourcing leads? If you don't have a clear answer, you shouldn't be starting that business because you're going to have no revenue and the business is going to fail. Right? It doesn't matter how good your idea is if you can't generate customers. I'll probably catch some flack for this, but servicing leads, essentially customer service, is really not that difficult. That's the easy part of the business. The hard part is, and always will be, generating leads at scale at an attractive cost. If you can do that, you're going to make a ton of money, regardless of how good or bad your customer service is. If you have a bad product and are great at generating leads, guess what? You're still going to make a ton of money, even though you may not feel great about yourself while you're doing it. Marketing is probably 10 times more important than the actual quality of the product you're selling. This is sad, but true. So far, what we've gone over in this section is that the only way to get rich in the future will be to own a business, and this includes investing in one, or to generate significant revenue for a business. That means the only important skills will be knowing how to value a business, knowing how to buy, structure, and operate a business, marketing, and sales. And I think marketing is better to be good at than sales. Naturally, the careers I recommend going forward are jobs where you can learn those skills and then branch off to start or buy your own business. So here are the careers I'd recommend moving forward: private equity, sales roles where you're closing cold leads, top-down lead generation, affiliate marketing is a good example of that, and skill sets that you can build a business around. We're going to go through these one by one so we can really define the career path and why it's a good role to take if you want to get rich. Private equity. At a base level, private equity is the art of buying and selling businesses. It's probably the most high-value skill set in the world because it's way easier to slightly improve an already existing business and then sell it for more than it is to build a brand new business from scratch. Entry-level jobs that are in this group are pretty obvious, so I won't spend too much time on it. You have kind of private equity analyst and associate, and real estate has the same thing, where real estate private equity analyst or associate. This is my personal favorite, as I think multifamily real estate is the easiest business to run in the world. That's kind of a separate point. But private equity focuses on the first two skills I mentioned above: knowing how to value a business and knowing how to buy, structure, and operate a business. As a side note, you'll need to learn marketing and sales skills separately later on, as they're not really taught as part of your role here. If you learn the private equity skill set, you're really only ever one deal away from becoming filthy rich. You see this on the real estate side, you see it on the regular private equity side. There's a reason why private equity firms make so much money. It's arguably the best business model in the world. I would say it is. The hard part about private equity is that there's significant barriers to entry, though, and it's difficult to get hired. Right? You typically need to go to a good college, work in investment banking for a few years, and then get hired onto a private equity firm. So this is obviously not possible for everyone, and I will recommend career paths down below that are available to literally everyone. But because of the high salary while honing your skill set, the potential to make a lot of money as an employee, one of the very few rare occasions where you can do that really, and the ability to easily break out on your own to start or buy your own business, private equity would be the number one career path I'd recommend to anyone if you're in a position where it's possible. The reason for this is you can always move downstream from private equity to almost any other role or business if you choose to down the road, but it's very difficult to do the opposite to break into private equity. So it gives you the most optionality as well. The end goal of private equity, as it will be for all these recommended careers, is to use the skills you learn to start your own business, whether that be buying real estate, starting a real estate private equity firm, or buying a standard business. As a side note, if you are interested in buying real estate deals and learning the real estate private equity business, which is the business I'm in, I do run a one-on-one program that teaches the entire process soup to nuts. You can apply for that in the link in the description. Real estate's a bit unique in that you can actually start your own private equity firm without going the institutional route, because it's the easiest to start buying deals in. So if you would like to do that, apply below. The program has incredible results, and I'm sure you've seen that in other videos. All right, moving on to sales roles where you're closing cold leads. There are two types of leads in sales: warm leads and cold leads. A warm lead is typically an inbound lead that someone else has already done the hard work on. Whether that means the lead is calling your business directly or you've already been introed by someone else, this is not a brand new interaction, right? The lead's already prepped. An example would be an HVAC customer calling into an HVAC business to get a quote, right? These leads should be closed at 20 to 50%. And while you're bringing revenue to the company, there are a lot of people who could be put in your seat who could close at probably a similar clip. Don't get me wrong, you're still way more valuable to the company than almost any other role since you're actually generating real revenue, but you're not as valuable as someone who can close cold leads. Closing a warm lead just isn't that difficult. As a sales rep who closes inbound leads, you're far less valuable to your company than a rep that can close cold leads, right? Just simple. However, though, if you can close cold leads, outbound leads, you're likely the most valuable person at your company aside from the CEO. And this is not an exaggeration at all. This is going to surprise a lot of people, but because of this, I'm actually going to recommend door-to-door sales as a good career path option going forward. It's probably the best example of closing cold leads. You're bringing in a customer that didn't know the business at all and converting them to revenue. You're basically making money appear out of thin air. Needless to say, this is insanely valuable for your employer and you'll get paid like a king, right? Once you know how to sell door-to-door, you have a skill set you can fall back on at all times that can generate revenue for you instantaneously. And there are thousands of companies who would hire you in an instant, like you start knocking doors the next day, right? There are a ton of industries you could do this in: solar, home security, roofing, landscaping, pest control, cleaning businesses, power washing, HVAC, really any home service business. The career path would look something like this: join a large door-to-door company, Vivint, Lumio, etc. Learn the ropes while making a lot of money, 1 to 2 years, right? And then pick a home service businesses to start. Really doesn't matter which one you do. So as I stated above, the hard part about making money isn't servicing the leads. It's actually generating them, right? And then plug and play your door-to-door sales skills within your own company, right? It's a pretty quick path, honestly, to a multi-million-dollar exit if you can execute. I seriously, you can become a multi-millionaire in under 5 years doing this. And I know people who have done it. The risk of this career path, though, is it's eat what you kill, right? If you're not good, you're going to flame out really fast. Also, just zero prestige. You cannot transfer to a different career path afterward. Doesn't look good in a resume. No one's going to want to hire you. You're not going to be able to go from door-to-door sales to private equity, but you can go from private equity to door-to-door sales easily if you wanted to. Benefits are, if you're good, you'll be making 300K plus within 2 years and can start hitting 500K plus around year 3 or so, especially if you recruit a team. Can come in from pretty much any background. Your resume barely matters. It's a low bar for hiring anyway, since you're not paid a salary. It's all commission based. If you're down your luck and have nothing else going on your life, it's definitely the best option. It also is a good lifestyle, right? You can take off entire months at a time in some industries that are seasonal, right? Like pest control, door-to-door salesmen make a couple $100,000 during the summer months, then spend the rest of the year surfing or whatever. But in the theme of this post, right? If you really want to get rich, you start a company around the door-to-door sales process. Let's just say you're used to managing a door-to-door team that does $1 million a year in sales. If you can create a team like that and bring that over to your company, you make an absolute killing. In the home services space, the good businesses operate around 20% margins, maybe a little more, 20 to 30%, and sell for 2 to 3x revenue multiples once they're big enough. So your first year in business with a sales team doing 1 million revenue, you'd make 200K in cold hard cash, right? 20% margins and $2 million in sale value, right? Because 2x revenue multiple roughly for a lot of these good businesses. So you'd make 2.2 million for the first year of work. Now, if you're smart enough to find a business with recurring revenue, those sales compound every year. That's where you really get rich, right? If you had 2 million in sale value to your business every year, you can kind of do the math there. So there are morons out there making money hand over fist in the home services space, and they're not even really good at running a home services business. They're just good at door-to-door sales. So it's not prestigious, but it's an insanely high value skill. So I do think this, as kind of a side note, I do think the career does have a shelf life. Just door-to-door practices are getting more and more unpopular among regular people, and there's a chance it might get banned in certain areas of the country. But overall, I think it's a really strong route to go right now, especially if you don't have strong pedigree. I will say top option is private equity, and I would honestly say real estate private equity, just because it's such a good business model and so much safer, especially with your exit options later on, and just you're technically owning a few different businesses because each piece of real estate is another business. It's just a better model. But if you went to a good college, I'd recommend the real estate private equity route, just because once you're in private equity, you can always move downstream to door-to-door sales or affiliate marketing or really anything else you want. But if you're trying to go from door-to-door sales to private equity, it's pretty much impossible. I mean, you'd probably have to go from door-to-door sales to running your own company to selling your company to private equity, becoming an operating partner at a PE firm, probably something like that. Top-down lead generation, affiliate marketing. Affiliate marketing is similar to door-to-door sales in that you're doing outbound marketing to convert leads that otherwise would not have bought the product. You're closing cold leads. So as mentioned above, this is an insanely valuable skill. For those of you who don't know what it is, affiliate marketing is basically this. A company wants to generate more leads or customers. So they say they'll pay anyone $70 for a lead. If you, as the affiliate marketer, can generate that lead or customer for less than $70, you keep the spread. At scale, you can make very, very large amounts of money doing this. Typically, affiliate marketing is done through Facebook ads, Google ads, or YouTube ads, but you can also do it organically. People do it on TikTok Shop, Instagram, things like that. It's kind of hard to lay out a career path for this one, as there really aren't many. Affiliate marketers typically run pretty lean shops, and there aren't that many really good ones. So you almost have to learn the business yourself. The important thing, though, is that you can then take these skills of generating customers and use it to start your own business. Being able to generate leads cheaper than everyone else gives you a huge edge when bringing in customers for your own business. As always, if you can start a business and generate leads at scale at an attractive cost, you're going to make a lot of money, regardless of how good you are at actually servicing the customers once they come in. So what are the risks of this career path? I mean, the first is that there's really no real career path. You essentially have to learn it yourself. The second is that learning by yourself is pretty expensive, right? You're likely burning thousands, if not tens of thousands on ads before you're profitable. Benefits, you can work from your laptop anywhere in the world. Since you could do it anywhere in the world on the laptop, you can start it easily while at your job, which isn't possible for some of the other ones. Like door-to-door sales doesn't require any pedigree, as there's no one even look at your resume, right? The internet also scales more than door-to-door sales does, right? So the amount of money you can make is enormous. And the skill translates to almost every business you want to start, from internet-based businesses to even home service businesses, right? Home service businesses run Facebook ads too. If you're good at running them, you could bring in leads. So overall, it's an incredible skill set to have. You'll learn marketing and sales. It's essentially the opposite of private equity firms in terms of skill sets you learn. So you'll need to learn how to value a business and how to buy, structure, and operate a business separately, as that's not really part of your role as an affiliate marketer if you do want to actually run a business eventually. Lastly, skill sets you can build your business around. So this includes any lower level job that teaches you skills you can build a business around. For example, there are many accountants at large firms, right? Quite frankly, it's generally not a good job at a bigger firm, but you can sell this service directly to clients and easily clear probably 25K plus a month. So it actually fits if you want to go run your own business, and it's superior to a job that teaches a skill that can't be sold. And I'll give some examples of that in the section below. I'm not going to spend too much time on these type of jobs because there's a lot of them, but they're not as good as the other options listed above, mainly because it could take a really long time to learn that skill, right? Maybe to go to law school, maybe to spend X amount of time learning accounting, and you don't learn any of the 4 valuable skills listed above, right? You don't learn how to value a business. You don't learn how to buy, structure, and operate a business. You don't learn marketing. You don't learn sales. So when you do go to start your own business, you have to learn all those skills on the fly. This is not ideal and definitely increases the chances of your business failing. Overall, the reason these jobs are still on the recommended list is they still allow you to start your own business. So if you choose not to start your own business in one of these roles, you'll be subject to the same downward pressure in wages we talked about kind of above, right? So if you do opt to be a lawyer or accountant or something similar, you really want to make sure you start your own business so you can leverage AI, offshoring, et cetera, right, to run a lean, profitable business rather than being an employee getting squeezed. All right, so what jobs do you want to stay away from over the next 25 years? This is kind of the last thing I want to talk about, really just specific jobs that I think will be a disaster, that you're going to be in really bad shape. So middleman type jobs. So these are generally brokers of one sort or another. Good example of this is real estate brokers, business brokers, investment bankers, everything, right? If you think residential real estate brokerage commissions are going to stay at 6% forever, I have very bad news for you. If you think business brokerage commissions are going to stay at 10% forever in the low end of the market, I have bad news for you, right? With the distribution of the internet, these fees are all going to 1% to 2% long term. In a lot of cases, I think these brokers are going to be cut out entirely. Writing's on the wall. I think these fees are going to compress, right? Someone runs a family-owned business for 50 years and 10% of the fruits of their 50 years of labor goes to a business broker who spent 6 months posting it on Biz Buy Sell. It's not sustainable. Why do majority of brokers don't add any value? Going to be out of business, right? So the rewards will accrue to the extremely talented brokers though, who will make mind-boggling amounts of money. So that I do believe. I think if you're a top end broker, great space to be in. And those talented brokers, basically what they're going to have is distribution, right? The only reason to be one of these in any of these roles, I think, is if you have distribution. And to me, that means a social media presence you can use to reach a large audience and earn your commission. That's going to be the main differentiator. Those are going to be the only people who can charge outsized commissions. And they're going to make a ton of money too. If you can reach hundreds of thousands or millions of people instantly with a single post, you're going to get paid for that, right? That's valuable. If you're in the brokerage business of any kind and currently don't have a large social media presence, I think you're certifiably insane. That's the number one thing you should be working on and will be really the only way to dominate your industry moving forward. So to summarize the outlook of middlemen here, wide majority is going to lose their jobs. Overall fees will compress, but there will be very large winners. And those people who are the winners are the people with the big social media presences to drive distribution. I think real estate brokers and low-level business brokers will be hit the hardest. True investment bankers will still make decent money just because that's more about covering your behind than anything else, and you need to hire someone prestigious for it, but it's not going to be as lucrative as it once was. Next one you want to stay away from, cog in the machine type jobs. You need to be able to sell your skill independently of your job, or you need to be able to start a business around that skill. If you can't do either of those things, leave immediately. If the job doesn't help make you self-sufficient, leave. Here's an example of something that'll be a little literal disaster over the next 20 years, right? Joe works in some obscure role in a large insurance company, very cushy job, but no transferable skills. This role cannot be directly sold to clients, nor is it useful for starting or owning a business. Avoid at all costs. Really, anyone who performs a specific role that only works in the context of a large corporation is shot. I'm not joking at all when I say this. That's crisis mode. This is you. Right? This type of job is going to get squeezed over the next 20 years until there's just nothing left, right? Assets. You need to own assets. Anything else, you're going to get left in the dust. I really can't stress this enough. Lastly, jobs to stay away from. High-paid tech workers whose skills don't translate. This is mainly referring to people who work in FANG-type companies where their salaries are significantly above market. If you look at your role and it has 0 major transferable skills, and there are only 5 companies in the world that would pay you a remotely comparable wage, use some common sense and admit to yourself that's probably not a good spot to be long-term. Is there a chance you get lucky and the gravy train continues for a bit more? Sure. But if you get fired, you're probably looking at a 50% plus pay cut, which would be catastrophic, right? That's just not a risk you want to expose yourself to if you can avoid it. So just in summary here, right? Almost all the changes coming in the next 20 years are going to be advantageous to business owners rather than employees, right? The world's getting more and more financialized with sophisticated investors owning a higher and higher percentage of the businesses in the country. There will be extremely low friction for hiring new, highly skilled employees. AI is going to drastically reduce the level of menial white-collar jobs. Globalization of the talent pool will make it incredibly easy to find a harder working employee at roughly 1/4 the cost of an American worker. Expanded high-skill immigration will further increase the supply side of labor equation and bring down wages, and even a rapid pace of change that's likely to make long-term tenure as an employee very difficult. So the difference between the haves and have-nots will widen. There'll be new opportunities to create significant amounts of wealth. The wealth will accrue to people who start a business, buy and sell businesses, generate a lot of revenue for businesses, and people who get lucky, probably some crypto types. There are really only 4 skills you want to cultivate, right? Knowing how to value a business, knowing how to buy, structure, and operate a business, marketing, and sales. And you only want to work in jobs, careers really, that teach you those skills so you can break off and either build a business of your own or become a full-time investor. Those jobs include private equity, mainly real estate private equity, sales roles where you're doing closing cold leads, essentially, top-down lead generation, right? And skill sets you can build a business around. Those who see what's coming are going to make a killing. Those who don't are going to get railroaded, right? So once again, if you do want to learn how to do this from the real estate side, which to me, I'm obviously biased. I think it's the best business in the world. I run a one-on-one program that teaches the entire process, soup to nuts, the acquisitions boot camp. You'll see some kind of stuff appearing on it right on the screen right now. If you'd like to schedule a call and just talk about it one-on-one, see if it's a good fit for you, you can do that in the link in bio.